Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Yamini. I am the VP of Sales and Business Development here at PureAir Filtration. A little bit of background about myself. I have been now at PureAir for 18 years. So I started in 2007, working with the company ever since, and it's been such a wild ride and just an enjoyable time. I'm looking forward to the next 18 years at this company and moving forward. So today, I want to introduce a gentleman, a very esteemed gentleman. His name is Barney Burroughs. He is our featured guest for this month's technical interview with PureAir Filtration's marketing group. He is currently on staff with PureAir as an advisor and consultant to our leadership team. But Barney is best known recently for his technical background and experience with IAQ, which is indoor air quality, and related high-end filtration and air cleaning technologies. This is because he is a past president of ASHRAE. He chaired the committee that created the MERV testing method, as well as co-authored Managing Indoor Air Quality, the textbook of IAQ, and wrote the peer-reviewed 100-year history of filtration and air cleaning. What a lot of folks don't know or have forgotten is that back in the 1960s, Barney held the patent on PureFill, and the very first chemisorbent invented to specifically control toxic and corrosive gases through chemistry. He went on to create the company by that name that became the foundation and driving force of the odor and corrosion control industry. Barney, welcome to PureAir.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Now, I got a question. Got a question for you. So now,
Fire away.
Thank you for agreeing to this interview. We really appreciate that. But
My pleasure.
But tell me, with all that been there, done that history, what attracted you to working with PureAir team instead of being on the golf course like most folks are?
Well, thank you for asking that. Let me start with the end of the question first, because the answer to that first is that I don't play golf.
Oh.
And it has always been my wish to rather chase a buck than to chase a little round ball. So,
Understand.
but on the other hand, most folks my age are under the golf course rather than playing it.
Right.
So, but most of my latter career has been putting things back, returning to the industry that helped make me successful and helped create really what we are enjoying today as the corrosion control and odor control industry, which has matured over these last decades. What intrigued me more than anything else about PureAir is it came as a lightning flash that there was a firm not 2 miles from my original facility, PureFill, that I didn't know about.
Right.
And it was suggested to me by a colleague that I ought to look at PureAir and see whether they're real. Well, I drove past, and sure enough, the sign was real. And then I called on my friend Google, and I went on your website, and I saw that you had some things that were really, really intriguing to me. My latter career has not been in industrial work. It has been predominantly in commercial work. And in my efforts to give back to the industry, that's been through ASHRAE. And I went up through virtually every committee position that can be held to attain the presidency, and then spent another 15 years or so still being used as the past president of ASHRAE. So that technique of being active has kept me very, very involved in industry. And I was intrigued that here was what seemed to be a relatively new company that I wasn't even aware of. So I used Google again, made the contact, and spent some time with your CEO, founder, Kevin Jameson, And Kevin and I talked about PureAir. Out of that, I was intrigued by the position that this team has put themselves in the marketplace. They've done things that I dreamed of doing back when I was in the marketplace of odor control and corrosion control. And so that intrigued me. And the fact that you had numerous patents, just at glance, the wall is full of patents. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit in terms of one of those. But that was a powerful, compelling reason that I wanted to see what this was all about. So the last few months have been very, very much an experience for me to bring forward the technology that I was familiar with 5 decades ago and see where it is today in terms of the market share. I was impressed with the team. I was impressed with your concepts of customer service. And I just felt that I had something that I could help put back into the industry through PureAir, because I was very, very impressed with both the team and your progress and your growth in what has become a truly critical technology for not only industry, but emerging issues, something called COVID and something called pollution control and health and safety. These are now survival issues that are critical. And so, in a sense, the industry has matured. And I'm pleased to be back a part of that in terms of my efforts to share back some of my original knowledge as where it can be applied even today, 6 decades later.
Well, we are happy to have you. So, so what were your first impressions when you learned about the original electronic bed monitor, or the EBM?
Well, the bed monitor was fascinating to me. And when I first heard of it, my reaction was, wow. Since the time I held purple pellets in my hand, clear back in 1968, we applied it without knowledge of how long, when would you change it, what is the overall cost per year. These were open questions. And as we applied the product in commercial installations, those remained to be the questions. Soon, we applied it in industry. And in fact, early on, we found our way into the industrial marketplace through a West Coast refinery who wanted to apply our product, the purple pellet, to control the stenching operation of natural gas. Natural gas is stenched with a mercaptan, which is an organic sulfur compound that is very odorous and is the instant warning of a gas leak.
Right.
And so this is a very troublesome contaminant to use because it has such a low odor threshold and is so offensive and harmful in terms of corrosivity that they wanted to protect their equipment from this, not the people, didn't care about the people. They wanted to protect their control equipment. And we created a 12-inch square box. That was the first apparatus that was a deep bed control machine apparatus that was applied to a hostile airstream. In that case, it was a derivative of the sulfur organic family. And that success literally put us into corrosion control in those early days. Well, the same questions came up. How long is it going to last? How do I know it's performing? When do I have to change it? So those issues have truthfully remained on the table, surprisingly enough, for 6 decades. And the reason I said wow in terms of the bed monitor that I was introduced to with you folks was I am so happy that somebody addressed this problem, because it is the urgent need that we heard from clients in 1970. It's what you hear from clients in 2025.
Right.
How long is it going to last? How do I know it's working? When do I need to change it? What's my cost per year, operation cost? So the maintenance cost of the apparatus is extremely important, because from the standpoint of marketing, PureAir and other manufacturers of these types of equipment must rely on replacement sales. And replacement sales come to good performance, dependable performance, cost-effective performance, and at the end of the day, a satisfactory installation. Without that, price becomes the issue. So repeat business is very, very critical to a PureAir in terms of its growth, because there are no new pulp mills being built in this country. There are no refineries being built in this country. So our growth comes from customer satisfaction. And the one way we can assure customer satisfaction is through what you started calling the EBM.
Right. Excellent. Now, that's phenomenal information on your EBM and what drew you to PureAir filtration. So once you got involved with the, I'll say more in depth and more educated on the EBM itself. So what was your reasoning behind, branding the EBM to something else and calling it the LIFEGARD Media Bed Monitor?
Well, I felt strongly that the bed monitor had features and attributes and advantages that were so powerful, and then behind it was a patent that I felt that could well be the most important thing that PureAir has done in terms of its product line, because it is a way of assuring the satisfaction of your customers and assuring that they will replace their equipment through you, because that is the heart of the success of this marketplace. And satisfaction of the customer is attained because they're satisfied that the equipment is performing properly. They know how to maintain it, that it's proceeding properly, and the patent did that. But a patent has basically its term, 17 years.
Right.
It makes it a unique product because it obviously has features that make it unique to anything else. But not only did the EBM have features, it has the potential of being the lead product for every product that is sold by the company. That said, I learned back when I dealt with the product Purafil, which was a patented product and was a trademarked name. I named the product. And I found that the very name of the product, along with its exclusive performance, was a powerful driver to extend the exclusivity that you would lose when you lost your original patent coverage. So in a sense, it becomes a lifelong value that is basically attributed to a product that otherwise would fall by the wayside because of, in the pharmaceutical industry, it's called generics.
Mhm.
So Viagra, everyone knows Viagra, but remember Kodak. Remember Thermos. Those are products from the late 1800s that still carry meaning and value and importance and market share. So what a valuable trademark can do is extend literally the life cycle of exclusive coverage of a product as if it were patented and unique. And I felt that LifeGuard was the name. I was concerned that it would not be trademarkable simply because it is a generic situation in terms of the lifeguard at the beach,
Right.
saving lives, but also protecting lives, and being the alarm, and being the person that saves the day at the end of the beach day. That summed up, I felt, what in fact this bed monitor was doing. It was basically saving the day, protecting the health of the system, and giving an alarm if there was something wrong, and saving the day in terms of problems that would be outcomes from failure of the system. So I felt that LifeGuard, if we could, with proper sound and phonetic rather than spelling, get it approved, and it was successful. And so we now have a successful trade name that I think not only will extend the value and exclusivity of the product, also describes its benefits.
Excellent. All right. So the lifeguard saying, so I would say, what problem does the lifeguard solve, and why is real-time monitoring critical for air quality management? Sort of touched on that a little bit, but can you explain this a little more?
Well, let me elaborate.
Sure.
That unfortunately, my early experience with this marketplace was where we learned the lesson badly, that putting delicate electronic equipment into hostile environments was disastrous for two reasons. It was disastrous for the equipment. Our first installation of the purple pellet was at a refinery in which the IBM equipment arrived 2 weeks early in terms of installation because of some project management flaws. It sat on the dock for 2 weeks unprotected, and when it was installed, it failed immediately, meaning it was corroded on the dock before it ever made it to the actual installed control room. Well, that's disaster one. The vulnerability of electronic apparatus, which back then was extremely expensive and extremely delicate. There was virtually no hardening of the equipment early on, and some of the early equipment was just converted business equipment. Business machines were converted just to be process control apparatuses. That was true in refinery. That was true in a lot of places. Less in odor control, although many sewage treatment plants applied corrosion control within the facility. And so that equipment was vulnerable, was not vulnerable to the odor aspect of the contaminant. It was vulnerable to its corrosivity. In case of contaminants like hydrogen sulfide, that was not the contaminant in pulp and paper, that's sulfur dioxide. But any of that corrosive acid gas family can cause equipment failure. But in the case of our first experience, the equipment failed before it was even installed. What if it had been installed, operated 6 months, and then failed without knowledge to the operation team and to the plant management? If you stop and fail in the process of controlling equipment in a refinery, you literally have to replumb the entire refinery because everything sets up. In many cases, the early plastic plants applied electronic controls for controlling the process, and these are huge towers which basically would polymerize in place a solid hunk of plastic 30 feet tall, meaning you had to replace not just the electronic process control equipment, you replaced your actual conversion equipment. We have testimony today through PureAir customers that a unpredicted shutdown of a paper mill costs $1 million a day, bottom line, on top of the replacement of the control equipment itself, just in productivity. So there are almost immeasurable kinds of consequences that can come about when you have that level of vulnerability to electronic apparatus. And so its protection and the predictability of that performance becomes essential. And it's a bottom line essential.
Absolutely. So how does LifeGuard change the way industries approach air filtration?
Well, what it does is it, in my opinion, gives predictability to process management. And that predictability is both sustainability, maintainability, and the ability to predict cost of operations, all intrinsically involved in what is the life cycle of specific components, what is the life cycle of certain disposable aspects of the system. Filtration equipment consists of either particulate filtration, which loads up, or suction equipment, which includes basically accumulation, and in some cases, if it is a chemosorbent, it's a reaction and uses up the available either sites for reaction, or it uses up the reactant that is causing the favorable outcome. And these mean life cycle. So a predictable life cycle allows basically management of the system, and it provides preventative maintenance scheduling. It provides predictable cost of operations, and it also can provide alarms if something has happened. And it's not unusual in a petrochemical complex or a pulp and paper mill for spills to occur. And should a spill occur, that is basically not predictable by current methods of monitoring these pieces of equipment. A calendar change schedule cannot predict that a spill will happen halfway there. And the only way that you find that you have problems with the system is because the process shuts down and fails.
Right.
That failure puts you back into that crisis mode of productivity. And so what I believe that the LifeGuard does is it enables any user to have a better handle on his role of product management and productivity.
Perfect. Well, Barney, that was all the questions that I have for you today. I just really want to say thank you very much for your time. And I really appreciate you being
Well,
on board with us.
Let me give you a parting shot.
Absolutely.
I'm-
Please.
I'm very, very pleased to be with PureAir because some of the experiences that we had in the very, very beginning are reoccurring. There was a severe situation of neglected maintenance. There was deferred maintenance. There was what was considered to be the outlandish cost of computerizing the process control. Those were big obstacles at the time when industry started accommodating for these issues. In terms of pure odor control, it was a nuisance. It was not a health effect. It was a neighborhood real estate value issue. It was those kinds of things that were more political, less absolute, let's put it that way.
Right.
And what has happened is we are seeing some of that same kind of thing happen again. Since the turn of the century, many of the paper mills, for example, are into third generation leadership. And they've lost their corporate memory. And they have not avoided the problem of corporate bottom line at quarterly reports. And so the stock price has dictated perhaps the maintenance schedule on expensive equipment and maintenance. And deferred maintenance becomes an issue. And deferred maintenance has been troublesome because it can be ignored if your bed monitor is not providing you the proper predictive information. And what is probably a great opportunity for us now is to revisit many of the existing mills who really seriously need a new look at their process control with the advantages that are unique by both patent and performance to the LifeGuard, which can in fact give them what they absolutely must have to have true process control, knowing what the equipment is doing and how it's performing on a day-by-day basis, knowing whether something is going wrong on an instantaneous live basis. And that's one of the real values of this system, is that it's actually recording every day for its entire life cycle. And it's doing it in such a way that is IT and cloud-based, that brings these new technologies to bear, which are totally accessible and so it gives us a history, it gives us a performance, it gives us life curves, it gives us predictability, it gives us annual budgeting. All of those things need to be, in a sense, re-looked at by industries that have matured and are going back into some very, very old bad habits of deferred maintenance and budgetary allocation.
All right. Thank you very much for blessing us with your expertise.